Hello, everybody. A warm welcome to another interview on Wisdom from North. I'm Jannike, and if you're new to my channel, welcome here. I'd love for you to subscribe, and you do that below. I also urge you to check out my free meditation that I have for you. It's called Meet Your Future Self. And there you get to meet the highest version of you and merge together with it so you can create a whole new reality for yourself. Also, if you are looking for a spiritual community, I invite you into our beautiful Wisdom from North membership. There you'll receive masterclasses every month with highly recognized teachers from all over the world that I have handpicked for you. And you can read all about it in the video description below. Now, today you're going to meet David Rippy. David is an inspirational speaker and author and a certified hypnotherapist. At age 25, his life was completely altered when he was in a car accident. It left him paralyzed from the shoulders down. Despite of all of this, he created a vision for his life and he followed his dreams. Today, he has written 6 books and he's helping people reach their goals and live their best lives. And today we're going to speak about his latest book, Healing Today's Pain, where he has regressed his clients back to previous lives and in between lives to find the root cause of their illnesses and pain. Now, let's meet David.
Hi, Janet. Thanks for having me back. Good to be back in Norway.
I have just read your recent book and I truly loved it. Like I said to you before we started this interview, it felt like coming home and it felt very healing to me, because sometimes we're wondering about, why do I have this issue? Why is this coming back again and again? I worked on it. I've done all the courses and all the stuff I can do, and still, it's still there. We're going to get deep into past lives and in between lives. But first, I would like to hear, why did you feel motivated to write this book?
Well, I'd already written several previous books involving past lives and doing regressions for clients. And, one of the books was called The Immortal Soul, that I followed that up with Meeting Jesus, where I was fortunate enough to regress a few people that actually had encounters with Jesus in Nazareth back in about, 30 AD, roughly 28 AD. I wrote this book because I had people coming to me with these pains, these issues, and these traumas that conventional medicine has not been able to help them with. They'd all undergone CAT scans, MRIs, acupuncture, Reiki, many, many different types of healing modalities that we're all pretty much familiar with. But none of them seem to have any lasting effects. So we decided to do something comparable to probably what Dr. Brian Weiss did at Yale, to where people in one of his books to bring back and say, hey, why are you, what are these traumas you're bringing forth? So I decided to follow up on that and kind of add some extra things myself that kind of got, cause. And what we found was that there was many clients that had these issues, and we were able to go to the source of that pain by delving into one of their past lives that were linked to that pain.
Yeah, and I think there are 8 different stories that you go through, and you find the root cause of them all. Is pretty amazing and exhilarating and exciting to read, actually. And then how they also come over to the in-between lives. But before we go into that, reincarnation, that was actually in the Bible at the time, right? You write a little bit about this in the book, but it was removed. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people aren't aware of, probably about 2.1 billion roughly that have of some Catholic or Christian faith, are probably not aware that reincarnation was in the Bible up to about 553 AD. And was taken out, from my understanding, by Emperor Justinian, who had leaned on 165 church elders at that time. And back then, if we look at it, from a political standpoint, there's a lot of barbaric wars going on. There's a lot of feudalism. There's a lot of separation. And of course, after the time of Jesus, when the first copies were probably being put down in writing as opposed to oral tradition. cut 150, 100 AD. Of course, we were suffering in 50 AD by Seneca and others. But, when we get to about 553 AD, this was about, 1100 years before the Gutenberg press. So as a result, what happened was you couldn't really have a book like 5 feet tall, handwritten with, thick parchment pages. So what happened was they took reincarnation out. It wasn't just from the bulk side. Obviously, they took out 46 other books in the Bible over the time since we came down to this sort of, I'm not gonna say watered down, but kind of a cliff note version with a lot of stuff missing that we know as the King James Bible today. But if we look at that time period, it was a time of power struggles. There was a lot of religious struggles. What Justinian did is some comparable to what Constantine did back in the Council of Nicaea. What Justin did 200 years later, roughly, was having it removed to where they could retain more of that control and power. We all recall back, if we look at that time period, it was like, if you don't pay attention to me, then you're going to go to hell. If you want to, spend some alms, you can maybe get your way into heaven easier. There was a lot of motivation to kind of consolidate what Jesus taught us with the disciples about how to live, love, and be. And a lot of that was commercialized about that time period. And, as a result, it sort of pulled in a lot of these Christian sects to where there was punishments if you did not adhere to what he said was the rule of the land as far as Christian theology goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to control people when you say you only have one life, this is it, and we're not continuing to living, either it's hell or heaven. And now I think information is coming forward that is not the case. Can you share a little bit about sort of the red thread of what you have experienced in these regressions that you did with your clients when it comes to what they experience in the afterlife or in between life, I would say?
A lot of times when we delve into past lives, we can go directly to that moment of death when body function cease. So at that time, they all describe in different ways of how they came out of that, that deceased body, what they did afterward, how they hovered around, how some stayed around for their funerals, others stayed around to make sure their children were okay. Some would hang out at, it's one instance in one of my other books was, a female that hung out, at the farm back in 1900. She had 7 children and about 3 of them were young, 3, 8, and 11 or whatever. And she stayed there just to make sure they were okay. And then felt fine to go on to, back to a higher realm and what we know as heaven. The other threads would come out. They say they'd see their soul kind of oozing out of their body like a silvery smoked snake of some sort. Other ones just came out like in a burst and said they saw, like, if their primary soul color was green, for instance, they would see a green orb come out and they would fly through space as that green orb until they got to where they were supposed to be going, where they're, let's say, their place of rest, their place of learning, their conscious involvement, what levels they can handle, and that's where they go back to. So a lot of times they will hang out. They'll stay on like an earthly plane. They might stay in maybe a middle realm. They might stay somewhere if there's emotions tying them here. Now, a lot of times what I've seen with more advanced souls that are probably of the darker greens, the blues, and I'll explain soul colors too for your audience that probably is not familiar with that. What you find is they go back immediately. They want to get back. They want to get back to work. They want to have that council meeting. They want to determine, what lessons they passed, what they did well on, what they need to work on, and they will zap right back down in a very short time period. And that's something I'd like just to bring up, if you don't mind. I'd like to discuss. A lot of people say, well, how long will it be on the other side in heaven, for instance, or wherever we go as a consciousness. And I found that time period is shortened dramatically since we go back to, let's say we go back to 10, 20,000 years ago on our continent, the first native where they're hunting saber-toothed tigers and mastodon. Usually that time is much longer, I've seen, before they would reincarnate into the next life after that one. Your history, it might be 1,000 years. As we proceed closer to like the times of Atlantis, maybe 10,000 BC roughly, what you find is these souls will come back maybe in 300 years, 200 years. And as we go all the way into like 0 AD, around the time of Christ, what I found was that the souls reincarnate back like in 150 years. They would start cutting down these time periods. And as we move into, let's call it the 1300s, 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, somewhere between 1200 and 1600, back in 75, 80, 100 years tops. So as we go all the way into our century, they're coming back like in 9 years, 17 years, 20 years, usually maximum. And in that book I wrote that you read, Healing Today's Pain, the one we're discussing today, you're going to notice some of them came back very quickly. If we could look at just the life as the underground fighter, for instance, I had a 29-year-old female, speech therapy and the Reiki, started on Reiki practice, but she ached from her hair roots all the way down to her toes every single day, migraines, concussions, tons of therapy, tons of, CAT scans and MRIs. Checking that mind. Why do I have this issue? And nothing worked. So I took her back to the source of that pain, and then we discussed that past life. And, I could go into that in a little bit. But what I just want to say was she incarnated back within a 17-year period, died in 1976 as a male Guatemalan, 66 years old, all beaten up as an ex-underground fighter, and came back as this Caucasian woman today, 28 years old when I met her just now, and a lot of body pains that she couldn't explain and had never had any relief.
Wow, there was so much here that I want to go into. First, it's very interesting what you're saying, that the time span was different from when we go back many years ago or thousands of years ago. And I'm wondering if that has to do with the evolution of the soul, that we are evolving much quicker now as souls. Would you say that? So we don't need as much healing time on the other side, perhaps?
Well, that's interesting. There's like two questions there almost. There's, why are we accelerating faster? Is it for our soul involvement? Yes, that's true. Now, looking at the other point is that when you mentioned your last part there, no, a lot of times you're coming back. And I think it's kind of interesting. I've never really put together, but if you look at what everything is comprised of, it's like you mentioned in other shows of yours, it's energy and vibration and frequency. But math, coding, things like that is kind of what really runs things. So what I see today is the acceleration, the whole species on this planet, the whole human species. And they're coming back much sooner. Maybe there's stuff we don't know. Maybe this whole Earth school story is going to be closed down like other schools eventually. Who knows? But, souls are coming back a lot faster. They're coming back, they're taking harder lessons than what I've seen in the past. They're not American, wonderful tribal life where you're hunting bears and deers and then you die of old age. No, they're coming back with issues. And a lot of times what you mentioned, which I'm leading up to in that second question, is that not that they've learned more on the other side, my opinion, and I've not researched this enough yet, but this is something I want to do, is are they coming back faster because they've passed their lessons, they're smarter souls now, or more evolved? Or is it the fact they're rushing down here before they're well prepared? And that's why some of these things aren't totally healed and are like playing that soldiers going back on that battlefield faster than he should have been. He should have stayed in that hospital longer, maybe. So I see several things that need to be explored here. And I have not had the time to do that. This book opened the door, beyond what Dr. Brian Weiss was doing, kind of brings in, the angels and everything else and what's going on here. But the real story, I think, is going to be looking at three different points. One is, are they coming back because they're evolving faster and they passed all the lessons? But why are they carrying these ailments and traumas forward. Why would you want to do that when you're working on new lives, or you're working on not new lives, but new lessons, or you might be repeating experience you've had before that you didn't pass. So I think there's a lot to be looked at here yet. I have not had the time, or I've not had the patience or the clients to do that yet. But that's something we're going to explore. Are they coming back, and why are they bringing back all these traumas? And they're saying, "Hey, I'm hypnotized in a super conscious state, but I was an ex-fighter. And yeah, I brought home my pain. I brought the migraines forward. I brought the concussions forward. I brought my body aches forward. And I'm trying to get through a life in this life as a speech therapist. I've tried Reiki. I've tried to heal myself. I've gone to thousands of different, not thousands, but tens of specialists. And I'm struggling in this life and that past life. If we could erase that pain, if you can take away that subconscious trauma, think how much better her life will be. Maybe the migraines disappear, maybe the body aches disappear. And I find that happens. And you want me to explain why I find that happens, so that they can work on those traumas and remove those?
Yeah, there are many perspectives here, and I love that you're giving an overview of different angles and ways to see this. And I think the mystery is so big that it might be too difficult for us to understand. Also, the timing of these things, time in general. But yeah, I'm also curious why we carry over certain things. Because let's imagine we have had 100,000 lives, or I don't know how many lives we can have had in the past or past. We cannot possibly carry all that trauma from so many lives. So it seems like there are specific things that we carry on from certain lives, which I find interesting. So my question is that if we maybe choose that in advance, like, okay, so I didn't heal this. Maybe I was murdered. Maybe somebody shot me in the throat, and this is something I want to heal. I want to heal my voice in this next life. So do you see it sort of like some lives are linked together that we choose in advance?
Well, there's a lot of good questions there, because there's mysteries out there involving that soul that's coming back, carrying these traumas, carrying these physical, mental traumas from past lives. Like, why are we doing that? Number one, why is that necessary for me to learn new lessons? But I got to drag this other old pain somewhere, from some other life. So I don't know. We don't know those answers yet. Okay, but those are going to be explored going forward. And another question is, am I doing this because I, get over that life a little bit too? Am I cramming certain things into this life? Maybe multiple complexities of traumas that are just they're all inside us. I mean, this is us. That's like, when people go and, say people go to today's therapist, they're going to, there's things they've done. Maybe they were sadly abused as a child. Maybe they have drug addictions. Maybe they have mother issues, father issues, who knows, brother issues. So there's people, when they go to therapists, a lot of times it's not just one little issue that's kind of dragging their world down. As a soul, if we've had hundreds and hundreds of lives, we're carrying a lot of past experience traumas in our mind, in our consciousness, our soul. Now, here's the other big question, I didn't bring this up, is are we seeing today these individuals? Most of the ones I hypnotize, somebody that wants to be hypnotized and have a past life is usually somebody that's into this kind of stuff. They're into mysteries, or into life after death. Where do I go? Why am I here? And like you said, a lot of people are getting into that now. It's true, because our consciousness is evolving, just like everything's evolving, just like computer speed's evolving, just like private corporate companies, business are trying to go to the moon now, that, unlike our little NASA programs. So we're seeing an acceleration. The speed of light goes around the globe 7 times in 1 second. So we can talk to somebody in China, just like he's our next door neighbor. So are we bringing these things forward, all these traumas, or are some leaking through because we've opened up our minds through Reiki and meditation, a lot of that, And always seeing these flashes, like these dreams, these pieces that filter back into our consciousness. And that could be, I think that's probably part of it too. I don't think we want to unlock those past traumas. I'm saying somebody comes out, okay, here's my list of lessons. You know, we were looking at a simplistic way. Here's my counsel. Here's my list of 10 things I want to work on in this life. They're going to give me cosmic amnesia, so I don't remember anything because I don't want to interfere with, you know, these new lessons. And I don't want to have I can't have an open playbook. You know, I'm supposed to figure this out on my own, you know, and then there's a lot of people like you, I, and others that are saying, hey, why would, what's this deal? I feel like there's reincarnation, but it's not my faith. You know, I got to delve outside, really see what's going on here. And that's kind of where people are today. They're at that level now where they want to explore past life. But before they meet me, many of them have already done Reiki. They've already, bought some crystals at the crystal store. They've read some books. So they've opened up their mind to some degree already by themselves. And all of a sudden they're going, wow, my back hurts. I don't know why, but I got this pain. I feel like I've been stabbed. I had a dream about it. People are opening up past lives in their minds through meditation, through this a whole awakening of consciousness, and are seeing little fissures, little glimpses of film coming into their heads. And they might say, whoa, that hurts. And they're going to remember that time when, they got stabbed back in Mesopotamia back in like 300 BC or somebody said, say him in the side with a sword. You're like, whoa, that's what you're seeing opening up today.
Very interesting. Before we move into the in-between lives, which I really would like to do, is your experience that your clients that you regress, that have these pains and troubles, are they healed? Are these issues healed after they have sort of found the root cause?
That's a great question because, it varied person to person. What I found is that, wow, I mean, it's how I look at it is this. If let's say you were shot, that's like a one-time traumatic event. I was shot, bang. I'm in the revolution that happened. That one client in there that I talked about who was murdered in New York City at the age of 23. Here he is, an executive producer on the West Coast now. And I hypnotized him, and bang, he found that out that he died in like the 40s being shot. So that's a one-time event. Now, is that going to come back and haunt him over and over? He's going to get shot? No. What happens with guys like that, clients like that, is that I haven't visualized it as like a movie. It's a bad movie. It's like watching the worst horror flick you ever remember. The first time you watch that, how shocking and traumatic it is. Like, whoa, it really got me. He listens to it was recorded like 7, 8, 10 times. Bang. After a while, it's just like, doesn't have any effect because, oh yeah, I remember I got shot. Let me move on. And that's what happens. And when you have things like that, say what happens is, could the pain come back? Can the trauma come back? Can I still be scared to go outside? Yes. And what happens is if somebody goes on with their daily life, if they don't listen to maybe the recording 6, 7, 8 times to kind of remove that. It's not even removing it, it's just being numb to it. It's like today when you turn on the TV, what, 80% of it's violence? I mean, most people are so numb to violence, they don't even bother them. They see crazy stuff all day long. So that's the same thing. If you look at a past life you've had where you've been shot in the head or your leg was blown off, which like a girl, a revolutionary soldier, 20 years old, comes to me, I'm complaining about this sciatic nerve pain in her leg, and nothing ever relieved it, no sports injuries in high school, no car accidents, so nothing to explain why her leg hurt all the time. So I said, let's go to the source of that pain. So we drifted back. And also this person was learning the Reiki. They're big Reiki practice. They're all pretty evolved souls, what I saw. Next thing I know, she described her life as a 20-year-old British soldier fighting Americans and got shot in the leg with a 50 caliber muzzle ball, dropped them right there on the field at age 20, a young kid, probably didn't have any belief structure, really, who knows, and bled out on the field. So that's a very traumatic story, but it's also an instantaneous one-time event because she went in the war at 20. She wasn't like a lifetime soldier where you might have a lot of PTSD building up. So I think it depends on how much in that life what has built up, how many layers of traumas did that life have, and how many of those seep through into this life. If it's a one-time event, normally you could kill that, within your subconscious by watching it. Okay, my leg got shot off. I've seen that in a World War II film too. Okay, it's sad, I get it. But they move on. If it's something else where you have a lifetime of addictions, you have a lifetime of scary events, you're living in a rough neighborhood, there's shootings all the time and people getting murdered, your mother was killed, this kind of stuff. It's harder to kill that PTSD, but it can be done. It can be done through meditation, learning to move on. I mean, if we just look at what Buddha and others have been attributed to this quote, is if we, they asked him, what has meditation done for you? You've been sitting under this Bodhi tree, you're relaxing, what'd you get out of it? What is it, what have you gained? And he goes, it's not what I've gained, it's what I've lost. I've lost depression, I've lost fear, I've lost anxiety, I lost stress. I've learned years later meditate how to pump my body with light, how to bring in divine energy, because I now know everything's energy, everything vibrates. My body's energy, why don't I fill it with some positive white light? Kill those red areas. And that's what I do when I put people in a hypnotic state. But through meditation of years, long time meditation, you can do these things on your own. You can heal that pain by concentrating on that, find out your energy and help to solve it. So I think we're moving in that direction now. And this book is just one of the, the beginning glimpses of, what we can accomplish as a meditative, self-hypnotized soul.
Let's move over to the in-between lives. I think people are curious about that, especially myself. So what you describe in the book is that these souls, these clients, have different colors, and they come to the soul council that are different masters or spirits, and it seems like it is a certain number of souls each time, like 4 and 5 in the soul council. So could you explain why they see themselves having different colors as a soul, and a bit also about the soul council, what that really is?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, I didn't pioneer the whole soul color evolution movement that we started to see. That was done by Dr. Michael Newton. And he stumbled across it accidentally because somebody goes, yes, I'm a green orb. And other ones say, I'm a yellow orb. And then you'd find out that, wow, these souls, our souls, are linked to colors, linked to what we know as chakras, what we look at a rainbow, look at a prism. So everything, yeah. So what I found is that by hypnotizing them, you can bring them deep into a state to where they say, hey, I'm green, I'm yellow, I'm red, I'm blue, I'm light blue with a little purple. And that was very fascinating because that pretty much is your level of involvement. If we look at the chakras, we look at a rainbow prism, we start out, and that's another interesting thing. And I did not find this particular fact, I'll tell you now. But what Newton found after 8,000 regressions, that there's about 75% young souls on Earth today. Okay, that's why we see all the craziness, right? A lot of choices being made without a lot of thought, perhaps, in a lot of ways. It could be politically all around the world. It could be people in your neighborhood are just like, whoa, how do they think that way? And that's because they're young souls. So that's about 75% of the population here today, which is like more of the reddish, maybe orange, like very bottom of the prism. And then we get up into the yellow. And the yellow, you're looking at probably about 15 to 20% of yellow souls on Earth today. And maybe green are about 10%, blue are less than 5%, and purple represents pretty much the smallest, and that's a handful. So out of 7.34 billion people we have on Earth today, there's probably less than 500 purples on Earth today. They're spread all over the globe today. And that's kind of what I found, is that you can find under deep hypnosis, how far along am I on the soul involvement scale? How much more do I have to do where I don't come back down for earth lessons, because this is a school. And we're all here to learn. We're all, a lot of us have cosmic amnesia. And I would say there's those that have woke up, and those that have woke up are listening to shows like yours. They're reading books like mine, or they're not quite woke up, but they've opened up that curtain of curiosity to where they want to know, why am I here? I missed the heck out of my grandparents. Am I going to see them again? There was so much energy there. I mean, it can't be gone. And then we learn through the discoveries of science. You're starting to see science catching up with religion. We can go back, look at look at the Buddhist faith, look at the Hinduism, look at a lot of faiths, and reincarnation's been in their books for 10,000 years. And we go back far enough. Some of the earlier Indian books, we took it out. So we have a lot of people kind of walking around saying, "Wow, I might go to hell if I don't do this or that," and it's sad. It really is. And these kind of books are just there out there to try to, say, "Hey, you're more than what your minister's telling you. You might go to hell. You're more than what you're even aware of." If you start to open those realms and those doors to your memories, it's just like let's say you're in a bad accident. You end up in a hospital, you're in a coma. Okay. You walk outside, they let you out, but you still have some sad issues. You don't remember a lot of things. And that's what we are as souls today. We come to earth, we just kind of look at the life we're in now as it. And, a lot of people get bogged down. We've had COVID, we've had job loss, we've had relationship issues, we've had political issues. So, a lot of people don't have time to listen to this podcast. And that's why you're seeing more and more people getting into it, saying, "Hey, this stuff's ridiculous. I mean, look at all the crazy noise all around the world every day. Why am I in the middle of this mess? Why did I come here?" But that's what people are wanting to find out.
Yeah, very interesting with these colors. And I also read Brian Weiss's books and Michael Newton's books. Let's move over to soul councils. So it seems like these souls come before a council. I have a picture in my mind that we sort of like sit down and they're sitting there, and it's a bit intimidating, but it actually seems like that in the book as well, that some of the clients are like, "This is a bit intimidating." Whoa, because these are masters. I would love for you to share like what most of your clients are experiencing in these soul councils. What are they really for?
Well, it's amazing what you learn. I think a lot of people don't really, we always wonder, what does heaven look like? What does the other realms look like? Okay, and I'm going to go right into council meetings, but what I'd say is that, they, as far as they know, and as far as I knew, before years of study and meditation and hypnosis and past lives, you have no idea what the hell's on the other side. You kind of look at it like you're in a, let's say, the way I saw it originally was almost like I was in a parking garage and I'm down on this first level and God's up there somewhere. There's maybe this 2-foot thick concrete barrier separating me, but I can't get through that barrier. I mean, that's kind of how we all judge what heaven is. Or some might go, "Wow, it's like a very dark void and we're all like little fireflies. We're all just floating around, erratically." No, soul council meetings are very, very structured. And what I've learned from pretty much the world's top psychics, and I mean top ones that won international psychic challenges, is that pretty much what you find is that, you die, pass on, you go to the other side. Sometimes if you're an involved soul, you know where you're going anyway. You're going to immediately come out of your body and say, "Wow, that was quite a ride. Glad I'm out of that old beaten up body. That hurt like hell, but now I'm going to go back, and now you're a consciousness." So what you see a lot of them will sit there. If they're evolved souls, greens, blues, they will just fly out. They'll hang out for a little bit. But the more evolved souls don't even care if they go to their funeral. They could care less who showed up. Because that's all up to them. They want to get back. So what I've seen is a lot of them that are very advanced. I'll go, where are you now? You came out of your body. You're in that Indian girl's body. Now, you're coming out of the top of the teepee. What do you do now? This kind of stuff I've seen. These are questions I ask. She goes, "I see myself, I'm in space," and they're just hurtling through space. They feel that instant release of freedom. And, we can't really get a grasp on it because, unless you're a trained yogi master and you're flying around with your conscious astral projector doing remote viewing type things, people have no clue what it's like to be out of their body, really, unless they've had a near-death experience. They're zapped right back in. And that's a whole interesting other thing. But what happens is you pass on, they're zipping through space. Next thing I know, they're saying, okay, now it's time to have your meeting. So they kind of get some of their little, out of the system. They'll get out, like I said before earlier, where, they'll hang out to make sure kids are all right and all that. They don't go to their meeting when they're ready. You're not dragged in front of a tribunal, similar to what some religions have portrayed the end of life to be. It's not like that at all. You are given a choice. You're saying, hey, you're not ready? Okay, well, let us know when you are. There's no such thing as time. Not a huge rush. That's done at the soul level. If you want to rush, as most evolved souls want to do, they want to get back down here. They want to cover those last few lessons and quit evolving. Quit reincarnating, go evolve somewhere else. Not coming down to this, this planet that has, the most diversity, the most, and I can talk about that for a long time too. But going back to soul council, I'll go back up. I go, okay, well, how many are on your council? Oh, I have 4. Okay, what color souls? So what's interesting is I've never yet hypnotized somebody. Well, maybe there was one person there on their council that, there's an observer, maybe a new person, and they might be the same soul evolution of the person I hypnotized. But usually what you have is if I have a green soul, I go, who's on your council? And usually it's the next colors right above. It could be like blues. I got 3 blues. And there's one with purple that's in charge. Purples are always in charge, regardless. If there's more than 1 purple, I have some very advanced souls that have 3 purples on their councils. And there's like one that's really dark purple, and he's like the head guy. The other ones just kind of sit next to him, but they all confer messages, and the one guy will speak. It's always the head guy that speaks. All the ones just kind of, it's kind of wild. It's kind of like they're all telepathically whispered among themselves in their little 5, if there's 4 or 5, whatever, like a hive mind where you're not allowed in there. Next thing you know, the head guy speaks for all of them. That's how it works. So councils will be there. They're there to, go over the lessons you did. How'd you do in that life? They will shoot telepathic messages in your head or in your conscience. You're sitting there like this, you're not sitting there. You're actually floating there usually. Some people stand. So I go, what do you look like? I'm all green. I'm glowing. Do you have features? No, I don't. Other ones going, yes, I have like a human body shape. I'm a little more translucent. So it is interesting. They'll show up at these meetings. Sometimes it's just a glowing ball. Other times it's like a humanoid. And that's kind of wild too. And then, if I progress them into more than one life, and a lot of my clients have the opportunities to explore under one session 3, 4, 5 lives. We'll just go from one to the other to the next. We'll go to their council meetings in between each life. It's like a 3-hour session, 2.5. And what's really neat about it, I'll say, okay, who's on this council? Well, there's 2 from my other council that were here last time. And there's one new one. I never saw this one before, but he's like an angel and he's very advanced. So our councils will change. There'll always usually be at least maybe 1 or 2 that have been with you since your first incarnations. And then there'll be other ones as you evolve, join the ranks. You might take something really complicated. There's just one head purple guy that really knows his stuff. So they'll bring him in depending on the lessons. And I think that's kind of how it rolls out from what I've seen.
Very interesting. And then from what I understand, there's no judgment. Is more they coming with an understanding of if we didn't pass, the tests or did what we wanted to do or accomplish. There's no judgment. It's more of an understanding, but more of an opportunity to try it again. And then it seems like that when we want to go into a new life, we have actually multiple choices. that I found interesting, that we had, it was almost like, yeah, you can go into this life or to those parents, or almost like you could choose what time you wanted to go to as well. Take us through that process of choosing a new life.
Yeah, that's very interesting. What we found was that one of the people in the one of my clients in the book, female in this life, was a Jewish male in the 1920s, was born, and of course, by 1941, she's like 23 years old as a Jewish male working at a Nazi armory, making bullets for guns. She goes, well, I go, what are you doing? We're making bullets for protect our country. So they all sound a little brainwashed at that stage. But what was interesting about their story was that prior to that, they had another life that we discovered, and then we went into their we went in between after death, after they passed away in that one life, that just popped into their mind. And at that moment, then they go into this like cocoon-like pod, and there's more than just one. And it's like it's not, it's kind of wild to even think about. It's not like some kind of a sci-fi movie, but it's kind of like and she described it as like a very warm, loving energy, like pod, cocoon, womb. And you just kind of picture one of those like, and I asked about it because we've all seen these type of pods out there today that might have music, might be there might be a sound deprivation thing, where you're, the other side where you're down, you're very comfortable and it vibrates and it's very nice and it's relaxing. So they wouldn't want something like that. But inside this pod is a heck of a lot more high tech than what we know. And this, what we go to our pods here. There's like holographic screens to where she can actually, they can reach out as a soul, as a glowing orb, telepathically tell that thing, show me the life choices I'm going to be presented with. And that's what this person went through about 3 or 4. And I go, what do you see on the screen? And she goes, I see war. And I go, oh, okay. She goes, yes, that's one of my life choices. I don't know if I'm going to take that life or not. So sad, I can go back, we'll go back. I know the person, we can do another session and say, okay, well, let's go back and explore that. What other choice you have? You chose war. So she goes, and so we're getting deeper in this regression. And she's telling me that, I chose this life in Germany. I'm a male, I'm 22 years old, I'm all dirty, I'm working in this, Nazi armory. And it described a really sad life to where, Nazi soldiers came in the middle of the night around midnight. And at this point, I think the person was about 23 years old, male, married, 2 kids, knew the wife's name, knew where they lived, knew what the kids' names were. And next thing you know, he said, they came and they grabbed them all, put them outside after midnight. And he ended up in this box, he ended up being taken to Auschwitz. And wow. But talk about a neat story, because, I had not heard this type of thing. I'd heard about screens, and I started using that in my own practice. I'm not segueing here either. To where I'd say, hey, look, we bring them down in a deep hypnotic state. And then then we picture a big, large eye translucent screen. And then I have them, after they're deeply hypnotized, I have them walk to the screen, tell me what you see, describe where you are, what are you wearing? And that's where a lot of these lives start. So what happened to this one? It's the same thing. She goes, I see a screen similar to the one I came to when I went to this life in Germany. I go, really? Okay, describe it. Sadly, they're all beaten up, as we kind of know about from the Holocaust. They're put in this oven, burnt. She sees all these souls coming up out of the dead bodies like at the same time. And then all of a sudden, there's this figure dressed in black. And then this is not to be scary or anything, but there's this huge white translucent screen inside this oven. And all the souls are being directed through this screen to the other side. Now, what's amazing about this screen is, can I ask this question? I go, oh, now when you went through the screen, then what? What happens? Where do you all go then? And what was wild was, she goes, as a male, she's a female in this life, so speaking as a female. She goes, we go through the screen, and then all the souls are directed exactly where they have to go. So somehow you're going through this screen, all these souls with different evolvement levels, that decide to take this lesson of being burned in an oven in Auschwitz are being directed where to go. So I go, okay, well, I'll follow. Another thing I've been doing lately, and they kind of like this. They know I'm here to help. They know I'm here as a hypnotist or hypnotherapist to, bring them to this, try to knock this thing out, try to cure this problem. So what we ended up doing is I say, look, I'll go along with you on this and da 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 da. So they see me inside this life with them, and I will guide them through the life. So I went through the screen with him, as a deceased burned victim of Auschwitz. So we go through the other side, and I go to some of these council meetings. I'll stand there, and they'll be next to me, and I'll give them a little support if they don't have their significant other or spirit guides with them, and they're kind of alone in front of this council. So no, that's very cool. So we'll go there, and I'll ask a lot of questions. I'll say, hey, can I ask some questions? So I will ask questions of her counsel instead of her being a new person to hypnotism, new person to past lives, a new person to soul council meetings. I can help her. I can be like her attorney standing next to her, helping her on the other side, as we navigate through how well she did. Like, how well did she do? Let's see what they say. Tell me what they say. She'll tell me what they say. And how well they did. We'll go right through that whole thing. And then what's neat is a lot of them will go, okay, I had my council meeting. I'll go, great. Now where do you go? And then they'll take me to some creation that they made on the level of their involvement and hang out there for rest and relaxation. That's a really whole nother neat thing. But go ahead. So the council meetings are there. They're not mean. They're not, they don't show up as a bunch of winged vampires that drag us off to some hell's place. No, they are like benevolent. Say you have great parents. Say you have friends that even say it. Like, oh my God, your parents are so great. I wish I had them as my parents. That kind of deal. We hear it all the time, right? Some parents just seem nicer than others. And nicer could mean you got a better cell phone and better tennis sneakers than your friends do. That makes nicer parents, right? The teenagers. So anyway, same type of thing. They're like having those kind of parents. I mean, they're there to say, hey, we better go back and work in that yard a little more. That looks, you didn't do a very good job out there on that lesson, cutting that yard. You left a lot of dirt and that kind of thing. That's what it's all about. So they're evolved. So think about this. If you're going to have an evolved soul who's lived thousands of lives, they're the perfect people, or not people, the perfect beings, masters, advanced angels to help you say, hey,
been there, done that.
Yeah, I've done that. I'm way familiar with those experiences. I've had hundreds of lives doing that too. And it's really cool to see how these masters, how these council members, how they respond to these clients of mine under hypnosis, sit in a chair. And that's where, it's really cool. It's really neat to see those things take place on the other side and how they describe how, the underground fighter, how Archangel Michael came. Pretty cool. Came out as a soul behind the dumpsters, a homeless man, and next thing you know, Michael's taking her up to a council meeting.
Wow, what a ride. Yeah, it must have been amazing to really open that window and learn so much. And like you're saying, experiencing a lot of it yourself. We have to wrap up soon, but the last question I wanted to ask you is a little bit about dimensional levels. You mentioned a bit that some souls go there, others go there according to their level of consciousness and their level of involvement. And I know that this is a huge question, but I just would love for you to share your perspectives on the different dimensional levels that you know of.
Well, there's been a lot of people out there that have, looked at different things. I think, as we go forward, as we, evolve as souls, what I've found is that, a lot of souls, let's say you're a young soul. Okay. Your consciousness, your understanding of reality or truth is going to be a lot more limited than a person that's, had 500 lives, for instance. So what you find is schools, the learning areas, the heavens we know of, will be different for those with higher involvements versus those with lower involvements. So I find that a lot of souls who, might be green, yellow, orange, red, white, might go to the fourth or fifth dimension. That's usually about kind of what I've noticed. And if we, you can break it down. We say there's infinite dimensions, there's infinite complexities and overlaps and everything else. But if we just break it down where we say, hey, God's on the 13th dimension, okay? Ascended masters, archangels are more around the 12th and 11th dimension. I've talked to some of the top, what I would say best psychics in the world. And they say it's one of the places I've been there myself under regression and things like that. But the campus is considered like the 10th dimension. And that's kind of where the ascended masters hang out, where the angels hang out. I actually have a girl that's coming out in my next book, a client, who talked about how it was almost really amazing. It was almost like a Mount Olympus type story. I mean, it seemed like, wow. And you could see why some of this Greek mythology and stuff is filtered down, through the years. But on the other side, she's going, oh yeah, we're down here and it's very pretty. There's a lot of, trees and there's rocks, and there's flowers, and it's really nice and sunny. And then I said, okay, well, what's over there? She goes, well, there's a big mountain in the distance, but we don't go there. And what was wild was she went over this bridge. I go, let's go toward the mountain. So we're going along this path. Next to there's this monster mountain. There's like snow at the top of it, all this crazy stuff. And she goes, yeah, but I can't go up there. I go, well, I think I'll be okay. Let's, follow me. I think I can get you up there, whatever. So I took her all the way up this extremely steep mountain. And at the very top is what they call the campus. And that's where it looks literally like open air Greek Colosseums. There's libraries. It's like what you visualize back 800 BC to 400 BC, or 1 AD period with the Greek statuary. Very beautiful. It's all green grass and beautiful. It's like Greece. It's like you step back in Greece in 400 BC. Okay. And that's how it looked, all open air. But that is the heaven where the higher realms and the higher beings go. When you come down to the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, that's usually what they call the astral realms, to where they're more alien. Okay. There's a lot of civilizations much more advanced than ours. And that'd be the Palladians, for instance. So they're usually about the 8th or 9th consciousness. And that's the 8th and 9th dimensions. So most humans are probably down around the 4th and 5th. Sometimes you can't go higher than 6 or 7. So that's what I've learned too. I mean, this is where my soul is. This is where I can get to. 6 is high. 6 is high. And the creative abilities are a lot different. If you go to the 5th dimensions, for instance, everything on the other side is created by mind. Here we are on 3rd dimension. So, we have to make things, and we have to wait for buildings to be built and everything else. I can tell you what the experience are like on the 5th. The 5th is where, if you want to create some, let's say you're looking at a solid mountain wall, you can literally, you can telepathically concentrate on that. And it's like a huge machine that's boring a huge hole in the side of this granite mountain, for instance. And then you can do whatever you want inside. That's what the 5th and 6th dimensions like. When you go higher than that, it's instantaneous. You can instantly see the castle in front of you. You have the lake, you have the pond, you have the river, you have the sea, that fast. And then you get up higher toward the 12th dimension. It's kind of like what we've read in the beginnings of the Bible, to where God created the world like that. And I do believe that, because I've noticed that transition of power and ability to create it more faster than instantaneously. It's faster than your mind can think consciously in this life. And that's how fast you can make things on the other side. That's it's really kind of a fascinating thing.
Wow. Thank you for explaining that. Something just clicked into place for me. Yeah. Oh, I can't explain, but I just had an aha.
You know what? I'm glad you did. I also like to say this is that when we look at different dimensions and we look at the Palladians, and I've learned these things, this could be a whole other conversation someday. But if we look at just the Palladians, there's a high, and what I've learned about their spirituality is that they're, and first off, physically, they're all much, bigger than humans. I mean, they range from 10 feet up to like 15, 18 feet. very good looking, very Nordic. Most of them are all blonde hair, blue eyes, or just, that's just the way it is. And what they do at death is their idea of death. They know this is just a life, so they'll come out. There's not a lot of fanfare. One situation I was familiar with was, there's somebody like the spiritual director of the Pleiadians that, he had a girlfriend. They weren't married because, he just had that kind of thing, had a child with her. Here he is going to the other side. It's no big fanfare. It's just it's just moving from one situation to another. So came out of the body, and she was sprinkling like white rose petals, and that was it. I mean, it was just bang. It was just accept. You kiss them on the forehead and move on, kind of like, you might see in a beamed up Star Wars or Star Trek story where they just kind of, go off in some other thing. So yeah, and that's how it is. So the Pleiadians are much more involved, and that's why the alien realms, the alien dimensions, it's called seventh, it could be seven too, but seventh, eighth, ninth, up to the 10th where the campus is, where the ascended masters and archangels are, and I mean, Confucius, Buddha, Jesus, Michael, Raphael, Uriel, Gabriel, they're all there for a fact. And what's interesting about the other alien dimensions is they don't go to the campus. That's where humans are going to go, human souls. So some souls is another whole different thing. Some souls have the ability to go where the Pleiadians go, or they go higher up in the 10th, they go into the 11th, because they were sparked out in the very, very beginning to where they just came out as light and conscious 50 trillion years ago. So that's, haven't heard on this program yet, but if we look at what just the Hindus came out with their book, and I've had this verified by lots and lots of top people, and I've been on meditative journeys myself in different realms and dimensions. But what you find is God, as we know God in our world, is probably about 320 to 330 trillion years old. Okay. Now think of you as a child up to age you're probably 30 years old, right?
Me? No, I'm 41.
I was well, whatever. Okay. But that was a compliment, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, what you find is that God, 320, 330 trillion, the Hindus knew that. And how can we trust that out of their books? It is because they've been accurate on the age of our Earth, the age of our universe, 10,000 years ago, before we had a Hubble Space Telescope. So what we find is, yes, it's amazing, because every year NASA, as we shoot our telescopes out in space farther and farther, our satellites farther and farther, we go, oh, wow, the universe looks older than we thought. I think it's now 16 billion years old. That's the way it is. So they came out with this number like 17.4, and every single 5, 10-year period, whatever, we launch something bigger and better out there. We say, oh, the universe is older than we thought. So we keep getting up closer and closer to what the Hindus knew 10,000 years ago, roughly. So what I'm saying is that if we look at God, and the psychics and people I've all verified it, they said, hey, he's about 320 to 330 trillion years old. Then I went deeper. I said, okay, well, when did the first souls come out? And then we learned the first soul sparked out 50 trillion years ago. And we've learned the names of 10 of them. I haven't figured out the other 75 or 80. There's about 100 of them that came out. But those were the first souls that sparked off this figure he's 330 trillion years. This thing, he's out there spinning in space in a void, 280 trillion years. Think how much energy. So what he did was he pulled in a ton of energy. Just kept growing and growing and growing, getting smarter and smarter and smarter. Kind of like we all try to get smarter and smarter and grow. But figure that over 270 trillion years. So the first explosion of sparks was about 100 souls, give or take, 75 to 100. And that was 50 trillion years ago. And all they came out, there was no consciousness. They were all light and they were energy. And they spun out there for years as these sparks. And they grew bigger and bigger. And then from them came all the other souls.
Highly interesting. I feel like we could go on for hours and hours and hours. There's so much to go into. But thank you so much for everything you shared today. I feel that I have to watch this again because it was so much information and knowledge here. And I urge everybody who is watching to check out David's books, and especially Heal Today's Pain is a beautiful, very healing book to read. Actually, it gives a lot of answers. So thank you so much, David, for your beautiful work and for showing up today.
Well, thank you so much. And anyway, be safe and good luck. And thank you.
Thank you for watching, everybody. And remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't before. Much light from Norway and the US. Bye-bye.